In the near future, the military had traded in their rifles for headsets and neural interfaces. Gone were the days of muddy boots and war-torn landscapes, replaced by pixelated battlefields and avatars. Soldiers now entered the fray of war not as flesh and blood but as ones and zeros, battling in sprawling digital arenas. And nowhere was this more apparent than at Fort Avenger, a military base that looked more like an amusement park for tech enthusiasts than a traditional outpost. Jake Thompson was a rookie in this brave new world. He had always imagined the life of a soldier filled with heroics, grit, and glory. Instead, his initiation involved a virtual reality training session where he stood in a sterile white room, clad in a clunky headset that felt more like a high-tech bicycle helmet than military gear. "Ready for combat?" a chipper AI voice chirped, almost mockingly. Sure," Jake said, trying to sound confident, despite the butterfly stampede happening in his stomach. He took a deep breath and pressed the button to enter the simulation. Instantly, he was thrust into a vibrant, chaotic battlefield that looked like a combination of a video game and a carnival gone wrong. Soldiers darted around him, and explosions lit up the sky like 4th of July fireworks. Jake looked down and found himself controlling an avatar that looked like a cross between a superhero and a cartoon character, complete with oversized muscles and an unnecessarily large helmet. "Okay, Jake," he muttered to himself, "just blend in." But blending in was hard when your avatar started walking backward on its own. What the? With a frantic wave of his hands, he managed to spin his character around, only to accidentally launch a grenade at his own teammates. No, no, no. The grenade exploded, sending virtual debris everywhere and knocking his companions off their feet. "Nice throw, Thompson," shouted Lieutenant Sarah Kim, his mentor, who was trying to contain her laughter. Sarah was a seasoned soldier, tough, smart, and with an infectious sense of humor that made even Jake's blunders feel less disastrous. "I swear that was a mistake," Jake said, face flushed as he tried to control his avatar, which had now gone rogue, chaotically waving its arms as if it were trying to hail a cab in the middle of a disaster zone. "Looks like your avatar's got a mind of its own," Sarah quipped, shaking her head with a grin. "Just try to keep the grenades away from us, all right?" With each passing second, the simulation escalated into a whirlwind of absurdity. Jake's avatar slipped and tripped, misfiring weapons and accidentally tackling his own team. Just as he thought he might actually get a handle on it, the simulation began glitching. The battlefield warped and twisted like a funhouse mirror, and the AI's cheerful prompts turned into static screeches. Guys? I think something's wrong," Jake yelled, heart racing as he realized they were in real trouble. The chaos of the virtual world was abruptly interrupted by a system-wide alarm. "Mission failure. All soldiers, evacuate immediately," blared the AI. In a flurry of confusion, Jake barely made it back to the extraction point before the digital realm collapsed around him. Jake stumbled back into the real world, ripping off his helmet and gasping for air. The sterile room felt like a relief, but he could still hear the echoes of the chaos he had just endured. "Welcome back, champ," Sarah said, crossing her arms and leaning against a wall. "You really put the fun in dysfunctional." Jake groaned, half laughing, half embarrassed. "I think my avatar might need some serious therapy." As the days passed, Jake adjusted to the idea of virtual warfare, though his initial enthusiasm had waned. He learned the ropes from Sarah and other experienced soldiers, absorbing their lessons as if they were golden nuggets of wisdom. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that something vital was missing. It was as if they were playing a video game while ignoring the underlying reality of war, the lives, the pain, and the chaos that lingered beyond the screens. On their first real mission, Jake donned his headset with a mix of excitement and anxiety. This time, they were tasked with infiltrating a digital stronghold held by a rival faction that had developed a nasty reputation for hacking simulations. The soldiers entered the simulation with a renewed sense of purpose. But as they stepped into the virtual world, Jake felt a familiar flutter of apprehension. The landscape was vast and sprawling, a dystopian city filled with towering skyscrapers, crumbling roads, and ominous shadows lurking in alleyways. It felt hauntingly real, even if it was just a simulation. As they began their operation, Jake tried to focus, but every glitch he had experienced in training loomed in the back of his mind. "Stay sharp," Sarah commanded as they moved as a unit, her voice steady and authoritative. "We've trained for this. Trust your avatar." Jake nodded, trying to push down his nerves. They engaged in a series of tactical maneuvers, successfully taking out enemy avatars and gathering intel. For the first time, he felt like he was part of something larger than himself, his skills finally aligning with his ambitions. But then, without warning, everything went haywire. The enemy had anticipated their moves, and the glitching that had plagued Jake before returned with a vengeance. The city warped, colors bled, and suddenly Jake was unable to control his avatar. He watched in horror as his character stood frozen, a mere spectator in a frenzied digital melee. "Jake, move!" Sarah shouted, dodging virtual bullets as she fought to keep the team together. But Jake couldn't respond, fear had paralyzed him. The chaos around him escalated, and his breath quickened as he began to feel the full weight of what they were experiencing. In that moment of desperation, he remembered why he had signed up in the first place, to fight for something greater, to make a difference. He had envisioned glory but now faced the stark reality of his situation. Suddenly, clarity struck. With a determined grit, he broke through the paralysis and focused on the mission. "I can do this," he whispered, channeling his fear into action. He activated his avatar's special abilities and maneuvered through the battlefield with newfound confidence. Together with Sarah, they led their unit, adapting to the chaos and using the glitches to their advantage. They fought fiercely, strategically outsmarting the enemy until they finally took control of the stronghold. As the mission concluded and the digital landscape returned to normalcy, Jake felt exhilarated yet exhausted. He had faced his fears head-on, overcoming the chaos and gaining respect from his peers, particularly from Sarah, who had witnessed his transformation. After the mission, Jake and Sarah stood side by side, watching the sunset through the base's observation deck. The sky was painted with hues of orange and purple, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just faced. "You did good out there, Thompson," Sarah said, her voice warm. "I knew you had it in you." "Thanks, but it took a lot of messing up to get there," Jake replied, a smile creeping onto his face. "I never thought I'd actually enjoy this, you know. The chaos, the glitches, it's like a wild ride." Sarah chuckled, her eyes twinkling. "Just remember, it's not all fun and games. There's a real cost to all of this. We can't forget that, even in a virtual world." "I get that now," Jake said, looking thoughtful. "It's not just about winning the battle, it's about understanding what we're fighting for." In that moment, a bond formed between them, a mix of camaraderie and respect forged through shared experiences. Jake realized that war, virtual or not, was about the connections they made, the lives they protected, and the lessons learned in the process. As they made their way back to the barracks, Jake felt lighter, a sense of purpose swelling within him. The soldier he had aspired to be was no longer just a distant dream, he was becoming that person, pixel by pixel, glitch by glitch. Days turned into weeks, and the missions continued. Each time Jake stepped into the virtual battlefield, he felt a little braver, a little more equipped to handle whatever chaos awaited him. With Sarah by his side, he learned the importance of teamwork, strategy, and resilience, but one day, during a routine training exercise, the simulation went awry once again. This time, it was worse than ever. The glitching became severe, transforming their once familiar environment into a nightmarish landscape where logic ceased to exist. Avatars morphed into grotesque figures, and the battle was no longer just a game, it felt painfully real. "Jake! We need to regroup," Sarah shouted as they fought against a tide of anomalies, her voice barely cutting through the chaos, but Jake felt a surge of fear clawing at him, threatening to pull him back into paralysis. He took a deep breath, remembering all they had faced together. "I won't freeze again," he whispered to himself, pushing back against the rising panic. He focused on Sarah's commands, rallied the team, and together they adapted to the chaos, fighting their way through the warped reality. It was an arduous struggle, but in the end, they emerged victorious once more, the system rebooting and restoring order to the simulation. As the team gathered to debrief, Jake couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. They had faced something far beyond a simple glitch. They had confronted the fear that had threatened to consume him. "You did it again, Thompson," Sarah said, a proud smile on her face. "You didn't back down." "Thanks, but I couldn't have done it without you," Jake replied, his heart swelling with appreciation. "You showed me what it means to fight, not just with weapons but with conviction." As the weeks rolled on, Jake continued to grow. He found a new rhythm in the chaos of virtual warfare, and with it, he began to find peace within himself. He no longer viewed the missions solely as a game. They were opportunities to forge connections, understand sacrifice, and embrace the unpredictability of life. One evening, after a particularly challenging mission, Jake and Sarah sat together, watching the digital sky flicker with simulated stars. "Do you ever wonder what it's all for?" Jake asked, a hint of introspection in his tone. "Every day," Sarah replied, gazing thoughtfully at the horizon. "But I think it's about more than just the missions. It's about the relationships we build and the lessons we learn along the way. Even in a virtual world, those things matter." Jake nodded, realizing how far he had come since his first chaotic foray into the simulations. "I've learned that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about facing those fears, whether in a virtual battle or in real life." Sarah smiled, her expression reflecting a deep understanding. "Exactly. And that's what makes you a soldier." As they stood there, side by side, Jake felt a sense of belonging wash over him. The chaos of virtual warfare had led him to this moment, a moment of clarity and connection. He was not just an avatar in a digital world, he was a part of something greater, a brotherhood bound by shared experiences. In that moment, Jake understood that, no matter where the war led him, he would face it with courage, humor, and a newfound appreciation for the complexities of both life and battle. He looked at Sarah, a grin spreading across his face. "You know, I might not be the best soldier out there, but at least I've got the best wing woman." Sarah laughed, a sound that lit up the night. "And I've got the best grenade-launching rookie. Just keep those things pointed away from me, all right?" Together, they stood amidst the flickering lights of the virtual world, ready to face whatever came next. Side by side, the next morning at Fort Avenger, the air crackled with a palpable energy. Jake had awoken with a sense of purpose, the weight of his previous fears now transformed into fuel for his determination. The virtual battles they faced had become a kind of second nature, a dance he was finally learning to lead. As he geared up for the day, he could hear the low hum of anticipation echoing through the barracks, ready to conquer the digital battlefield again. Sarah teased as she entered the room, her voice full of enthusiasm, more like ready to not blow us all up this time. Jake shot back with a grin, recalling his earlier mishaps. He could still picture his avatar, awkwardly flailing about like a new recruit trying to impress his crush. "I think I've got a handle on things now, though." "Good to hear," she replied, her eyes sparkling. "We've got a big one today, an operation to recover some critical data that's been compromised. It's not just about defeating the enemy, it's about strategy and teamwork." They gathered in the briefing room with their unit, the atmosphere charged with camaraderie and shared purpose. As their commanding officer laid out the mission details, Jake felt a familiar surge of excitement mixed with nerves. The enemy had fortified their defenses in the virtual stronghold, and they needed to rely on each other more than ever. As they donned their headsets, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that today was different. The laughter and jokes shared during training felt like a safety net, wrapping him in confidence. He glanced over at Sarah, who was focused and ready, and felt an unshakable resolve settle in his chest. When they entered the simulation, the familiar rush of the virtual world enveloped them. This time, instead of a sprawling metropolis, they found themselves in a dense, foreboding jungle, complete with towering trees and an underbrush thick enough to hide an army. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting intricate patterns on the ground, and Jake felt a thrill race through him. "Stick together," Sarah reminded everyone. "We'll need to outsmart the enemy, not just outfight them. Communication is key." Jake nodded, his heart racing with anticipation. As they moved deeper into the jungle, they encountered holographic projections of the enemy, their avatars skittering through the foliage, agile and stealthy. The team fell into formation, each member aware of their role, and Jake felt the adrenaline coursing through him. "Jake, you're on point," Sarah instructed. "Lead us to that intel. Keep your eyes peeled for ambushes." "Yes, ma'am," he replied, feeling the weight of responsibility but also a rush of empowerment. He navigated through the underbrush, his avatar moving fluidly as he scanned the area, adrenaline heightening his senses. Suddenly, an alarm blared. "Enemy ambush detected." A swarm of enemy avatars burst from the shadows, and chaos erupted. Jake's heart raced as he ducked behind a tree, taking a moment to assess the situation. "Flank left," he shouted, recalling the tactical maneuvers they had practiced. The team moved as one, working in harmony, as he launched a well-aimed shot at one of the approaching enemies. His shot hit its mark, and he felt a surge of pride. "Nice shot," Sarah praised, her voice cutting through the cacophony of battle. They fought fiercely, weaving between trees and using the terrain to their advantage. The jungle came alive with the sounds of gunfire and explosions, each moment an exhilarating reminder of why they were here. As they engaged the enemy, Jake felt his confidence solidifying with each successful encounter. But then, the tide of the battle shifted. A massive enemy avatar, larger and more formidable than the rest, charged toward them, its presence like a storm cloud rolling in. "This one's ours," Sarah declared, rallying the team. "We take it down together." Jake felt a rush of determination as they coordinated their attacks, each member of the team doing their part. They moved in sync, a well-oiled machine. As they closed in on the behemoth, Jake could see the pixels glitching around it, proof of the hacking that had compromised their mission. "Now," Sarah shouted. With a united effort, they unleashed a barrage of firepower, and Jake could feel the adrenaline peak as their combined strength overcame the enemy. With a final blast, the colossal avatar disintegrated into shards of data. Cheers erupted in their communication feed, a symphony of exhilaration. "We did it!" Jake shouted, laughing in disbelief at the chaos they had just conquered. "Let's keep moving," Sarah urged, a grin on her face that mirrored his own. "We're not done yet." They pressed on through the jungle, navigating traps and defeating smaller enemy squads, their teamwork solidifying with each step. Jake found a rhythm, responding instinctively to Sarah's commands, his confidence soaring with every successful engagement. Finally, they reached the enemy's data core, a pulsating digital structure nestled deep within the jungle. Jake could hardly contain his excitement. "This is it." "Get ready," Sarah warned, her tone shifting to serious. "We'll need to cover each other while we extract the data. Expect heavy resistance." As they initiated the data extraction, an onslaught of enemy avatars surged toward them. Jake's heart raced as he and his team took defensive positions, firing with precision. The virtual bullets flew, and the air was thick with the tension of battle. He could feel the pulse of adrenaline, the weight of responsibility anchoring him. The extraction process seemed to take an eternity, and just when they thought they had the upper hand, the jungle erupted with enemy fire. "Fall back. Regroup," Sarah shouted, and they quickly adjusted their formation. Jake found himself beside Sarah, the two of them working together to fend off attackers. The chaos was intense, but he felt a sense of clarity amid the madness. With Sarah covering him, he took aim at an approaching enemy, his breath steady, his movements deliberate. "Jake, look out!" Sarah called out as an enemy avatar charged at him. He turned just in time to sidestep, narrowly avoiding a melee attack. Fueled by adrenaline, he countered with a swift kick that sent the enemy sprawling. "Nice moves." Sarah laughed, exhilarated. "Thanks. Just trying to keep up with you," he shot back, the thrill of combat igniting a fire within him. With the extraction nearing completion, they fought back the final wave of enemies, and finally, the data was secured. Extraction complete. "Let's get out of here," Jake shouted, relief flooding his voice. As they made their escape, Jake felt a rush of triumph. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. The jungle around them transformed, the vibrant colors shifting back to the familiar sterile white of the training room. When they removed their headsets, the team erupted in cheers, high fives and laughter echoing around the room. Jake caught Sarah's eye, and they shared a smile of mutual understanding and respect. He felt a sense of belonging, the bond forged through shared trials solidifying into something unbreakable. "Great job out there," Sarah said, her voice warm. "You really stepped up today." "Thanks, I couldn't have done it without you pushing me," Jake replied, gratitude swelling in his chest. "I finally feel like I belong here." As the day wound down, Jake found himself reflecting on how far he had come since his first chaotic training session. The mistakes and mishaps that had once felt embarrassing now seemed like stepping stones, paving the way for the soldier he was becoming. "Hey, you up for some celebratory food?" Sarah asked, breaking him from his thoughts. "Definitely. I could eat a whole pizza right now," he laughed, his stomach growling in agreement. They headed to the mess hall, the atmosphere light and buoyant. As they sat down with slices of pizza, the conversation flowed easily, laughter punctuating their stories of the day. Jake felt grateful for the friendships that had blossomed amid the chaos of virtual warfare. "You know," Sarah said, wiping sauce from her chin, "I was thinking about how we handle glitches in the simulation. Sometimes it feels like life is one big glitch, doesn't it?" "Absolutely," Jake agreed, taking a bite of his pizza. "It's like we're just trying to navigate through all the chaos, one battle at a time." "That's exactly it," she said, her eyes sparkling. "But what matters is how we face those glitches. We learn, adapt, and grow stronger." Jake nodded, feeling the truth of her words resonate within him. He had faced fears and failures, but he had also discovered courage and camaraderie in the most unexpected places. As the evening wore on and they finished their meal, Jake found himself looking forward to the future. He had entered this world seeking glory, but what he had gained was something far richer: friendship, understanding, and a sense of purpose that extended beyond the virtual battlefield. With each mission, he was learning more than just tactics. He was learning about life and what it meant to stand beside others in the face of chaos. He had transformed from the bumbling rookie into a soldier, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The sound of laughter filled the hall, and Jake felt a warmth spread through him. He was no longer just a player in a game. He was part of a team, a family bound by shared experiences. And as he glanced at Sarah, her laughter bright and genuine, he knew they would face whatever came next together. In that moment, Jake understood that even in a world driven by technology, the human element remained paramount. It was the bonds they formed, the lessons they learned, and the courage they found within themselves that truly defined their journey. As the night deepened, Jake couldn't help but feel a surge of hope. The battles they fought might be virtual, but the connections they built were all too real. Whatever awaited them in the digital realm, he knew he was ready to face it head-on, surrounded by friends who had become family. And as he settled into bed that night, the glow of the stars shining outside his window, Jake fell asleep with a smile on his face, eager for the adventures yet to come. He had found his place in the chaos of war, and with every glitch, every victory, he was becoming more than just a soldier. He was becoming a part of something greater than himself, and that was the greatest victory of all. The end.